Do you ever feel like you're speaking two different languages in your relationship? Or do you wonder why your partner shuts down when you bring something up? Today we're talking about how understanding each other's wiring can really transform your relationship. We're really pumped about today's guests, Sam and Liv from Silly Stories for Kids. These are our kids' heroes, so getting them onto our podcast is really exciting. Silly Stories has been the #1 downloaded podcast for kids and families category, and we get to hear from them today about communication in their relationship. So stay tuned, this is going to be a good one.
Honey, we need to chat.
The main memory I have of you that I don't even know if is real. I need you to confirm for me because
Is it the near-death experience?
I think I've heard this story.
the only thing I can remember is one rainy day. Being in the locker bay, there's a crowd of our classmates and they're cheering on this guy. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And then this boy jumped onto the railing of the steps and slipped down and whacked his head and got taken away in an ambulance. Is that an accurate story?
100%.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing about that story is my memories of it, because literally the last thing I remember was standing on top of a picnic table with the whole year level there chanting, do it, do it, do it. And one guy being like, don't do it, man. You're gonna mess yourself up. And I literally, the last thing I remember is me turning to him and saying,
I'll be fine.
I'll be right.
I remember I was at the back and I came in and I was like, you guys are so stupid. And I was like, why are we all telling him to do this? And then you fell and you whacked your head. It was like so traumatic. And I was like, this is why
Do you know
we don't do this.
There was a rumor going around that I died. When I came back, one of the guys was like, I heard that you died. I'm like, sorry to disappoint. No.
The teacher chanting over you.
Mystic. Do you remember him? The next thing I remember after standing on top of the table is being on the ground under a space blanket with Mr. standing over the top of me chanting, chicks dig scars, bones will heal. And I remember just going, what happened? And the ambulance people were like, that's the 7th time you've asked that now. We're starting to get a little bit worried.
Yeah.
And I was like, but seriously, what happened? But the best part is I made it to a formal that night. And so I remember none of it, but supposedly I was a lot of fun.
You're very happy in the photos.
The painkillers were strong, so...
Welcome back to Honey, We Need to Chat. We are so excited today. We've got 2 incredible guests joining us. This is a really special guest episode for our family because our kids are obsessed with Sam. Sam and Liv are joining us, Sam and Liv Ramsden. And you may or may not have heard of Silly Stories for Kids. It's a podcast that skyrocketed, and I can't wait to hear more about that whole incredible journey. But our kids are obsessed with it. It's such a good podcast for kids. And they write letters, they write stories, they talk about all the different characters all the time. They were so bummed that they were going to be at school when we were doing this interview, to the point where our oldest was trying to convince us to keep him home from school.
Yeah, so, and our second oldest woke up with a limp this morning, quotations, and couldn't walk properly. And so they come up with any excuse they could to stay home and meet you, mate. But those harsh parents.
They've got this video they can watch back. They also were very confused why Sam from Silly Stories would be wanting to be on our podcast.
Yeah, why would he come on your podcast?
As I said,
I mentioned
when we were introing. But yeah, anyway, so we're really excited to have Sam, and we're also super excited to have his wife Liv join us because, as you know, we're a podcast all about communication in relationships, and these concepts that are the foundation of relationships are so important, and we're so passionate about them. So we love chatting to other couples and seeing how they've navigated it in their marriages and also in their different seasons of life. And you guys have a lot going on, so we can't wait to learn more about you guys. Thank you for finding the time, and thank you. It's been a long time coming, and so I really appreciate your patience with finding a date and actually being here. That's such a helpful thing when we're trying to navigate these things. So thank you for being here, guys.
Thanks for having us. We're really excited to come on. We love what you guys do, so it's fun to feel a part of it. And you can tell your kids that I feel very special to be on your podcast.
Great.
Yeah, that's good.
Great.
Okay, I'm going to clip that, and that's going to be played before every single Silly Story for Kids at nighttime when they go to sleep.
Or every time they disagree with us, like Sam from Silly Stories.
Yeah. Sam said we're cool.
Podcast,
yeah, absolutely.
You can say it at the end of the episode, and then we'll really know you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
I'll send you some clips from the different characters telling your kids how amazing you are.
Perfect.
anytime they give you some grief, you can play something from one of the characters and be like, oh, remember.
Parenting gold right there.
Yeah.
That would be a game changer in the parenting. Oh man, we're really excited to have you guys here. So thank you for joining us. Also, your studio, if anyone's watching the videos, your studio looks so cool.
So much nicer than ours.
So much nicer than ours. Yeah, I've got some jealousy.
It normally looks terrible. You guys were the inspiration to go, oh, I should try and make this look good. And it might make me start recording some video stuff for my podcast as well.
Yeah,
so
I reckon you should.
Yeah.
You've done it very well. And we've been working on our studio for a very long time and haven't achieved that yet. So I'm kind of jealous now. To start us off, though, we'd love to hear about you guys. If you could introduce yourselves, what you do, your family, and we'd also love to hear how the Silly Stories world unfolded for you and what that's looked like for your family and your marriage as well. One at a time, though. I did just give a fire hydrant of questions, but if you can remember all of them, perfect.
Well, Liv, you can fill them in on who we are, and I'll jump on the silly story stuff. I probably might touch more about that one.
So I'm Liv, aka Mrs. Silly Stories for Kids, as all the school families know me, and a lot of the kids know me. So we've been married for 11 and a half years, a long time. It's gone quick. And in that time, I've had 4 beautiful little girls. So we've got an 8, 6, 4, and a 19-month-old. So we're nice and busy. Samuel runs an electrical company 5 days a week, and also Silly Stories on the side. So after hours and in any time we can make it fit. Yeah. Between mumming, I'm also a cardiorespiratory physiotherapist. So I'm the physio that no one really knows about. I work in intensive care. I didn't even know that I would exist when I started doing physio. But fell in love with it. So I work with ventilated patients and in the ICU. So really love that. So I do that 2 days a week, and that is enough because between 4 kids and 2 days of work, we're blessed in the fact that my mum can look after the girls those days that I work. But that's my life maxed out.
Absolutely.
We both do a little bit of volunteer stuff down at a local church in a few different capacities. I do some youth work there. Liv does some teaching and things. But on the silly story side, that's been a wild little adventure that I don't think either of us ever expected. It wasn't our idea. We didn't think of it at all. But having kids, bedtime's always been one of those things that you kind of just, it's damage control a lot of the time. And we found that something that worked for us was me laying down on the floor and I have a very wild, busy brain. And I used to just lay on the floor and just make up stories for our kids. And my father-in-law, Liv's dad, was actually listening to them all. And he told Liv one day, I need you to get your kids looked after. I need to speak to you and your husband. And we were both like, oh, no, what have we done?
What have we forgotten?
Do we owe them money or that we've forgotten about or something? And we're like full panic stations. And he took us out to a local pub and sat us down and said, hey, I've listened to you tell these stories for a while. I want you to turn it into a podcast. I'm like, what are you talking about?
And then he brings out the stats. Like my dad's he's very entrepreneurial minded. So he brings everything out. He's researched it and he's like, there's nothing in this space that's like what you do. So he'd heard it because it started when Holly, our eldest, was 1. Yeah. So he'd been telling them for about 6 or so years, and he can just rattle them off without thinking. So he sits and just goes, I'm going to talk about popcorn, and just tells this story. And when we started timing them, they all went for like 11 and a half.
It was really
12
weird.
minutes.
It
just had naturally found into the rhythm. Wow.
Yeah, seriously. But we kicked it off and I'm someone who likes to do things well. So once I decided I was going to do it, I went down the rabbit hole of all like the YouTube videos and everything of like, how do you start a podcast? Let's get addicted to technology and work out what different microphones. As you can see, this is like 2 of like the 5 microphones I've got. I just like to hear what they all sound like and play with all the different things. And it's like a bit of a focus point for me. I just love learning about all that kind of stuff. But I honestly thought I was recording them for our kids to hopefully show their kids one day of like, hey, this was when your grandpa went insane kind of thing. But as it kind of got running, all of a sudden people were listening and then people overseas were listening. And then we started showing up on the weird one was all of a sudden I opened up this app that kind of tells you where you're ranking in different countries and stuff. And we were number 1 in Israel. I was like, what the heck is going on here? And it was just this moment of realization this thing was turning into a lot more than what we ever expected. And so it just kept growing and growing and growing, and it's just opened random doors and just given me so many opportunities to use creativity that I'd never got to use previously in my electrical business or anything like that. So fun little adventure.
Little is maybe the questionable word there, but yes, fun adventure for sure.
It's fun. It's so much fun. It's one of those things. The more you kind of just step out and give something a go, it's exciting to see where it goes. And even if it all flops at some stage, what an exciting little journey to have some fun with
100%.
at a time. So,
and 100%. I was just going to
100%.
say, it's easy like you guys will understand, for kids, life is very, very busy. And as they're getting older, you're adding all the extracurriculars and all these things. And for something that like Samuel was recording in a cupboard, literally in a cupboard after hours with some blankets and a microphone, it was so easy to release him to do that because it excited me so much to see him using the way that he's wired, his creativity, the joy it would bring him and the life it would bring him. It was in regards to counting the cost of what it took at home for me to, put the kids down and do a bit of tidying up while he was ducking out to the cupboard to record. It was easy to do because it was so life-giving to him.
Awesome.
And so exciting just to see how he was using how he's wired. It's just amazing.
Wow. That story is incredible. And I love that because it could be really easy for something that was started off as kind of a, let's see how this goes, and then blows up like that to be a sore point in a marriage because you are having to then sacrifice some of your time and some of your energy to make him free to do that. And so I love that that's such a life-giving thing for both of you. You watching him enjoy that and him having that creative outlet is huge. What a story.
Totally. And because Samuel's, don't get me wrong, he's a great electrician, but he's in electrical because he loves people. He comes home, the thing that he talks about from work is, I got to go into this house today and I had this conversation with the homeowner and our apprentices, we had all these amazing conversations, and just seeing him invest in people, that's what he loves. That's what he loves doing. So this podcast just gives him such an outlet to positively impact other people's families. And selfishly, I'd held that for 7 years. And that's what my dad said to me. He's like, you can't keep this gift just to yourself because giving me 11 and a half to 12 minutes, probably about 15, 20 minutes by the time you got the girls in, settled, told them a story, what I could achieve in our house in 15 minutes of peace to reset, whether it was, loading the dishwasher or, clearing table or getting just toys off the floor or it enabled me that when the girls were then in bed and Samuel came back out, we had a space where we could actually sit with each other. So it was such a gift to then be able to give that to other families. And the ways that we've heard from other families, how they're using it in their own lives, whether it's just, kids with anxiety not being able to get to into the classroom. They pop headphones on them and they can listen to a story from the drive to school to walk into the classroom and take it off to get into the classroom. Like gifts like that, that's such an incredible thing to be able to allow other people the joy of doing. So
one of my favourites was a dad who came up to me and he's like, I need to thank you. I'm like, why is that? And he goes, because my kids were being rat bags and I was ready to see how far they could fly. And I could feel that anger building up inside of me. And instead of an outburst, I just said, go listen to Sam. And they went off and they turned on their little speaker and they started listening. And he said, I took some time just to pause and calm down and come back as a better dad. And I was like, how good is that? Like to be able to create some opportunity for people to have more positive interactions. It's a massive blessing to be a part of that.
Absolutely, mate. And like I said to you earlier before we started recording, like to get you onto our podcast, it's more than just like, oh, cool, we've got this guest speaker on, he's done something, really cool out there for kids. It's way more than that because as a parent, like knowing the impact it's had on my kids, like helping them go to sleep or when they've had a low day or whatever else, like that person they can go to that just brings that spark and that skip in their step, whatever, that has a special part for us too as parents. And so, like I will be honest, there's only so much I can listen to with the stories. All right. So like any children's show, right? There's only so much I can cope with. But it's been really, really amazing, mate. And you saw the way that my daughter reacted. And my kids were up late last night writing cards and stuff for you because it's not just this is a famous person. It's like, no, this is Sam. We know Sam. We know these Sam, characters and these characters have had an impact on our life, which is really, really special, mate. What have you learned? Like, so, do your kids listen to this podcast? To your podcast? No, not to our podcast, to your podcast. To your podcast.
They still, all they want is a live story because they feel like they're getting cheated when they listen to Dad on a speaker.
Yeah.
They do listen to it. We have a family holiday house in Bright, so 3.5 hour drive. And our kids are like, let's start at the start and see how far we can get. And I was like, really? And we did. We listened to it for 3.5 hours straight.
Wow. I wasn't in the car.
Wasn't in the car. I called Samuel and I was like, I love you so much, but if I need to listen to that intro one more time, I'm going to go insane.
You literally said, when you arrive, please just don't speak for a little bit.
Just wave, man. Just wave. Yeah.
So funny.
Hugs and wave.
It's been, for us though, the learning journey has been a really exciting kind of thing of looking to inspire different forms of creativity in our own kids. So understanding how much joy there is for me in getting to use my brain as it kind of is wired, rather than trying to push it into doing what everyone else wants it to do for once. Finding those areas where you can release a person to do what it is that brings them real joy, rather than try and push them into a little box and kind of make them do what they need to do. Looking for opportunities for that with our kids, because like, I don't know what it's like with your four, but I didn't realize there was 4 forms of opposite until we had our kids.
Yeah.
They're all so different and so like amazing, but you got to kind of look at them each as individuals. If you try and replicate the same kind of stuff from one to the next, it just doesn't work. So
how has that actually played out into your story? So you've got 4 different kids, and this is where the base is, you know, how you sort of started up telling these stories for your kids. But as you said, you know, you get 4 different types of opposites. So you learning each one of your kids and what they respond to and so forth. How did you go about that process?
Within the stories, man, it's tricky to kind of articulate, because I don't actually think, to be honest. Whenever I'm recording a story, it's just like taking the brakes off and seeing where it runs. So for me, it feels like I'm very much experiencing the story as it's coming out, rather than the one telling it, which is quite strange, because I often forget that it's me telling it, and I find myself listening and going, "Oh, that's kind of funny." I'm like, "Oh, hang on, that's you." Like, you got to kind of
that came out of your mouth,
kind of stuff. But me, I've learned that so much stuff in natural life just changes the little bits inside of me, so that what naturally comes out in those moments is different. So the more I get to understand my kids and what they find funny and who they are, then naturally in those moments where I'm not consciously thinking, it changes what comes out in those moments, just because of over time what I've learned. Because all of a sudden what's in me is different than it was before. When you squeeze something, what's going to come out of it is only what was already in there in the first place. So the more information that we can put in about who our kids are and how they react and what they enjoy and what they don't enjoy, it will naturally, when you take the brakes off and let it run, it'll come out differently the more you put in.
We were actually talking about this the other night when I was saying one of the things I think we've really had to learn with our kids is that we've needed to be good students of each child that we have. We need to learn who they are, and we can't treat them all the same. And in regards to, if we're talking specifically about creativity, one of our children really, really struggle to sit and focus and write. They're so creative. Like, you talk to them and they are witty and sharp and quick and just the funniest girl. But she really struggles to get that down on writing. And last holidays, I bought her a book and I tried to encourage her, and it just became so hard for her. And then a couple of days later, I gave her a laptop with voice to text, and she wrote this 8-page script for a play, which she took to school to teach all of her friends. She gave them all parts, and the way she formatted it, so knowing how she's wired and not forcing her to do something to try to express who she is in a way that's really hard for her, but finding what works for her, it was amazing then to see what actually came out of her. It blew my mind. I was not, when Samuel got home, I was like, look at this. Like, this is actually so incredible. But I think when we were talking about that, I said that was actually something we had to do at the start of our marriage. And I think that worked really, really well for us. Is we had lots of opportunities early on, because we got married when I was 21. No, 20, just turned 22.
Yeah,
and
Samuel was just 23.
Yeah, about to turn, I don't know. We were young. We were young when we got married. But we had lots of opportunities early on to do a few things. Like, we did pre-marriage counselling, which was fantastic. We did it with about 3. We did like a formal one, and then 2 couples who we would just catch up with and chat with, which was really, really valuable. And then we also did another course. What was it called? Do you remember? Soul Tour.
Yeah.
Soul Tour. It was just a course which what it did is you looked at things like family ties, family of origin, unbearable feelings was a really, really big one that worked really well for us, where you look at what is an emotion that is, or a situation that is unbearable for you, and how do you respond in that situation. So we walked away from that learning that I was a bottler. So neither of us like confrontation. We don't like to raise things or do something that's going to cause friction. But the difference we learned between us is that I'm a bottler in that I won't react to the conflict or start conflict, but I will hold it and I will build and build and build and build and get to the point where it comes out in my emotions. Not that, because Samuel and I, we've just sort of had a thing. We don't yell at each other. We don't call each other names. We don't really argue in that regard. But I would get to a point where it would come out in sort of I would just get overwhelmed with emotion. And Samuel's the opposite in that he doesn't approach conflict well at all, but he just avoids. So while I'm sitting there bottling, he's just totally suppressing and avoiding.
Yeah,
so when we would then talk about something, and this is, I think, we learned to be good students of each other early on through all these opportunities, is that I learned if I was to the point where my bottling was to the max and then I would come to him overwhelmed, he would just walls up and not want to even go there and wouldn't want to deal with the conflict and would suppress. So I had to learn early on to acknowledge my bottling, humble myself, remove my pride in that I would have to come to him and give him the grace in that time to I approached him with something, give him time to process it and to come back. And I could easily have arced up, I think, and been like, he's not responding, he's emotionally cut off from me. But by knowing him well and how he's wired, I was able to go, okay, I need to hold space for him.
We had to have some conversations in the times when it was really, really casual to be able to explain how we think. Yeah. I think a big thing for us was because we used to, if there was something serious that we were trying to talk about, we did the dumb thing, we talk about it too late at night. But Liv would raise something and then I would sit there in dead silence, because the way that my brain works is I will sit there and I will run every scenario of everything that I can possibly say all at the same time. And if my brain can't come up with a positive scenario that leads in the direction that I think it needs to go, then I'm incapacitated to say anything. So
literally says nothing.
Literally
silent.
Nothing.
Just
so
silent.
Learning and spending some time together when we were just chatting normally and saying, hey, this is how it works, and kind of chatting about it and going, well, how do we deal with that if that's the reality of the way that my brain works? And so we just kind of put something together where Liv just said, I'm happy for you just to start talking, and I will give you the grace knowing that what comes out at the beginning most likely won't be what you're actually trying to say.
And a lot of the times it's not. And I have to really be in the right mind frame to be like, whatever comes out of his mouth, I need to give him time to refine that and not take offense to it. I cannot hold that and I cannot bring that back up, because I know for him, he needs time and space to work out exactly what he's thinking. And it's harder for him to do that internally. If he just starts, it's much easier to say something and then say, actually, no, that's not what I mean. Let me think about it more. And the hard thing is, though, not taking offense to that. And I had to learn to be like, okay, he does not mean what that sounds like. I need to allow him to refine that. And I think a lot of communication in regards to conflict for us has been humbling, and it's been me not framing things in a way that makes me believe a narrative that's not true of the situation. So I could very easily take offense straight away to what Samuel's saying, talk myself down a path of this is what he means, this is what he's thinking, which would not be of benefit for either us individually or for our marriage together.
I think the only reason that kind of communication tactic works for us is because we actually have so much trust within our relationship, and the way Liv responds to me, because sometimes the first thing that comes out of my mouth is dumb and not what I'm trying to say at all. And to be able to know that she loves me and she's always looking for the best. She's not looking to be offended. She's not looking to attack me. She's actually looking for the best. So even when I say the dumbest thing and I'm sitting there going, oh, idiot, that was wrong, and going, that's not what I'm trying to say, the fact that she actually gives me the grace, because it would be so easy for her to hold on to that and use it against me. And if she did, that conversation would be dead. There'd be no way to redeem it.
So damaging.
But it's that, like, we actually genuinely really love each other, and we're actually trying to look at these kind of things as, hey, we're working this for the best for both of us. So she knows that if she gives me the grace to be able to communicate it well, that it will be better for the both of us. And I know that even though it's super uncomfortable, if I start talking, we'll get to a better understanding of what's actually going on here. So it's a team game. Like, if you're not on the same team, this kind of stuff is really hard.
Yeah, that's a huge part of our approach to the podcast and just our marriage is the curiosity and trying to figure out what's going on for your partner. And that, I love what you guys, how you described it when you said being a student of your kids or of your partner. I think that's so important, because if you take things at face value and just assume everybody functions the same way, you're going to find so many misunderstandings and hurts and like mismatched everythings because we don't all function the same way. And so we often read Reddit stories on the podcast, and so often it's like they just don't have the ability to think about what their partner, where they're coming from, or what might be sitting behind it, or why they might be acting that way. And sometimes it is really horrible behaviors. And so it's like, yep, that's fair. But just having your brain like trained to think about what's going on for them is such a tool. It's just such a helpful tool because it'll help you navigate anything that you come up against. So I love that. I think that's a beautiful way of navigating it.
A question that I love as well, and I find it actually really, really helps with this kind of stuff. And I'll ask this question to a lot of people because
anyone in the street who we start talking to.
It's super interesting, but asking them to describe what it feels like to think. Because if you can get an understanding of what someone sees their own thinking and thought processes like, it gives you so much more of an understanding into how they operate.
Yeah.
And it helps you to look at moments and go, no, they're not actually being rude. They're actually processing this, or they're running through this. And you get some wild, like I still haven't got a single answer that's been the same out of anyone that I've spoken to. It's wild. And like when I described for Liv the first time what it felt like for me to think, I remember this look on her face of like, how do you exist?
My brain must be like crickets for Samuel. Like I have one voice and one clear thought and logic and order and process. And he has like 8 voices at once he explains like these things swirling around on the outside that he sometimes grabs, and if one's in front of him, then another one has to be pushed out of the way. Like his brain works so differently. So for example, if we talk about that late night conversation again, I sit there in my head with my single voice saying, why isn't he answering me? Like, how hard is it? Can't he just, and he's there like.
I'm chatting to 30 people. I'm writing a song lyric. I'm like wondering how you actually get the toaster to run at the right number so that it actually comes out correct. My brain's doing 50 things at the same time. And so for us, getting to understand that and going, okay, what actually works here? What do we need to do? It's great. It's a really fun question. I love it. And
that's allowed me to be a good student, Samuel, but also for him to understand how I work. So again, just knowing that he's wired that way doesn't excuse things.
No.
For like one of the biggest things, whenever anyone asks, what's the hardest thing in your marriage? I always say it's this really like silly, mundane thing. But the one thing that Samuel always does is he leaves his wet towel on the carpet. And I just, I can't understand how 11 and a half years in, he still just can't pick it up and put it on a hook. But I know that he's not leaving that on the ground because he internally is like, she can pick this up and leaves it there, or thinks that I'm the one who looks after the household, but I know that his mental load is so high that for him, he doesn't even realize that it's on the ground. And there are times where, depending on what's happening in life, I might look at that towel and I might go, you know what, I'm actually going to go out and tell him that he's left it on the ground. Or I might go, this time I'm just going to serve him and I'm just going to pick it back up and put it on the hook. Because at the end of the day, it's a towel on the ground and I can fix that in 2 seconds, but I'm not going to excuse the behavior. So there are times where I come out and I could come out and say, you know, you've done it again, your towel's on the ground. Or I could come out and say, hey, Ram, like, I just noticed the towel's in the walking robe. Do you mind picking it up and hanging it? And he'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'll go and grab it. And he'll go and get it straight away. So I'm not a doormat. I'm not, you know, his slave and servant, but sometimes he does just need that prompting. And there are things, like that's one that just won't stick. There are things that I'm not, he's like, you know, I'm not always prompting and always needing to be his mum in that sense to get him to do things. There are things where he has changed and picked up and he does see things now that he didn't see earlier, but it's just the way that his brain works. And I could hold that against him or I can, actually just serve him in it or prompt him to go and do it. And what I found is that 9 times out of, well, actually probably I could say 10 out of 10, is that when I do ask him to do something, he's more than happy and willing to do something straight away. It's just that he hasn't seen it in the first place.
And I can imagine one of our listeners like hearing that and being like, well, you shouldn't have to say anything in the first place. Like that is not your role. But I think what's special about what you're sharing though is there's times when we show up for each other though. It's not that, you know, you shouldn't be, like you mentioned, you don't have to be his mother or anything else like that. But if I look at our mine and Amy's relationship, we'll do that for each other in different ways. What I love about what you're sharing is, his mental load is so big. So this is the way that I can show up for him in this moment. And we do that for each other. And that's the teamwork of relationships. I think it's really, really important to identify that as well. It's not you being the mother. It's you supporting your partner in a small way and frustrating way as well. Sometimes, yeah.
I would say one of the most romantic things that Samuel's ever done, which actually made me cry, which is so ridiculous when I think about it, is because he knows that we had floorboards in our first house and they were forever felt like I was vacuuming all the time or sweeping all the time. And he's just so busy with work that it was that I was home more. So because I was home more, I was doing a lot more of the housework because he was out quite a bit, coming in late. And one night he rocked up with a robot vacuum because he knew that he physically couldn't do the work, but he could find a solution in how to help me. Yeah. And I actually sat on our couch and cried over a robot vacuum. Like, how ridiculous.
No. Blair gets it. He loves his robot vacuum.
I felt so seen in something so practical.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so served in that, and he got one that he could link from his phone. So there'd be some days where I'd be home and then all of a sudden I just hear the vacuum go and I'd be like, oh, Samuel's thought of me, and he set the vacuum off from his phone. Like,
they're the moments I was trying to capture before, so I don't know how clear or that came across, but I think that's it. It's like, again, what in what ways can we show up for our partner in small ways or big ways? I think the what you just said then again is you feel seen.
Exactly.
Amy and I went through this love language period, right, where we're really trying to understand each other's love languages, but how understand the other person more. And we went through this process of gifts, right? So mine are gifts, and she would go out and try and get these elaborate gifts. I'm like, why are these not having the impacts that I'm supposed to have from doing this test? I'm meant to be gifts. And then she got me a mug one time, and it was just a mug. It was a Star Wars mug. Look, before this mug, I wasn't massively into Star Wars. It was actually Mandalorian, right?
Yeah.
And I started to really get into this show. And the fact that she got me something, it was so much smaller than what she was getting me previously, but it was that moment of being seen, right?
Yeah.
And that has so much more weight behind it than the extravagance sometimes. I mean, robot vacuum cleaner is pretty nifty. I'm not going to lie. I love
the
my
meaning
vacuum.
for you is what that held.
Exactly.
Yeah, and same with the mug.
The scene element is really important.
Exactly. That's why understanding your partner and what makes them tick and what sits behind their behaviors and their needs and that kind of thing is so important, because then you know how to address those things. And I think another thing that we really love to focus on in the podcast is wanting your partner to succeed. So it would be easy in what you guys have described, Liv, if you were like, I've said this so many times to Sam, and I'm done. I'm done, and I'm not going to keep telling him about this wet towel kind of thing. It'd be easy to do that. But we also, I think a lot of the time we miss this piece of wanting them to succeed, because we want our marriage to be stronger and we want to be closer together. And ideally the goal is in 10 years time, we're working closer and closer together, not further and further apart. And when we've got that mentality, I think it helps with those things and that grace that we give to our partner, because we're on the same team and we want them to succeed and we want them to feel loved and we want them to learn and grow, because all of us are learning and growing. So you can extend that grace in a better way, which is really beautiful.
Yeah. And it's the difference between a relationship that is caring about the other person versus a relationship that's transactional.
Yeah.
So if Liv was being transactional with me and saying, well, I've done this for you, therefore you should be doing this for me, it would actually be negative for both of us. But I think the big thing within our relationship is that we make sure that our focus isn't on ourselves and if I do this, what will I get? You have to kind of check your reasoning and check your purpose behind it and go, why am I doing this? And if it's not for her benefit and it is deceptively for my benefit, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Find something that is actually about her, because as soon as you get into that space of I did this, therefore you should do this, all of a sudden it just changes your perception around everything that you're doing.
It
It actually leads to more divisiveness within the relationship than actual strength together. And so it's one of those things that Liv choosing to pick up my towel, and because for me it's something that as soon as I literally take that towel off my shoulders, it disappears. It's not in my world anymore because there's too much going on in my head. It's just gone. But if she chose to be transactional about it and go, well, I'm always picking up your towel, you need to do this for me, and made it about herself, it would be a really different conversation.
Yeah.
And her picking up that towel and me noticing when she picks up that towel and going, oh, all of a sudden it would either be tied to guilt or shame or something like that. But at the moment, it's one of those things that I go, I wish I could remember that more, but how blessed am I that I have a wife that loves me so much that she does this without grumbling and without trying to make me feel horrible. What can I do to show my wife love and value? It drives something in me that wants to see the good in her, but it's not an expectation on her behalf at all. She's doing it because she loves us and she's making a decision that moves us closer together. And it's one of those things. So often we chat with a few different people with different complex relationships and stuff. And the thing that we've learned from chatting with people, and I guess we apply it to our own marriage a lot at the time, is you can actually only change what you can change. And the easiest thing that you can change is your own responses and your own attitudes to any given situation. And what that enables the other person to be able to do is astronomical. So when people are sitting in a position of going, well, I'm not going to give my best until they give their best, well, you're putting yourself in a really tough situation. But if you go, actually, I love my partner and I actually want what's best for this relationship. Therefore, no matter what they're doing, I'm going to choose this. It actually enables them to be able to make better decisions themselves. Liv choosing to love me and to see the best in me, even when I do dumb stuff, enables me to be a better husband in our relationship. So,
yeah, one of the things that we talk about a lot is sitting on the same side of the table.
Yeah.
We're not opposing each other in everything we do. And I can see it early on before we had kids. I can probably even see it more so now that we do have kids. And one of the easiest ways to probably show it is like if we always say to our kids, you know, mum and dad are a team. If dad says something, I'm not going to say anything different. Or if mum says something, or if our kids come and ask us something, we'll always ask them straight away, have you spoken to mum or dad first, just to hear and see if they have and they come into play us off each other?
Because that's how I got a puppy as a kid. Mum said no, so I went to dad and he was like, oh, I don't see why not.
And they went to the pet shop and got a puppy.
So we were prepared not to get caught out by that one.
Because they have your genetics. So
yeah, seriously.
I use that a lot. But even in front of the kids, if there's a discipline situation and Samuel says something or says to our kids, because this has happened, this is the consequence for it, and this is unfortunately what it's going to be. And in my head, even if I don't agree with that, I need to sit there quietly for that moment and be on dad's team. And then away from the kids, I can either say to Samuel, you know, I actually think that was a bit too much, or, oh, I don't know if you were aware that this was actually the precursor to why that happened. And if something does need a change, Samuel will then come back to the kids in front of them and say, do you know what? I didn't have the full picture. I'm really sorry that's what I said, but we're actually going to change it for this. So even being that united front, our children know now that there's no way that they're going to get one thing from dad different to what they get from mum. They know that we're working together, same team. And even if it's not for parenting, but just in regards to our marriage, we're going to be for each other. We're not against each other. Nothing that Samuel does, if he says he's going to be home at 5:15 and it's 6:15, and I'm not going to think he's only trying to avoid dinner time and baths and because it's easier to be out of the house. That's a wrong framing for me. He's on my side. We're on the same team. Something's obviously happened, which has held him up for that little bit extra time. I can attack him. Hey, where the heck are you? In a message. Or I can send a message saying, hey, is everything okay? Like there's ways in which you can be on the same team in all situations. I loved that curiosity, that always assuming the best. It allows us to approach even issues of conflicts in a more humble way rather than a way that's looking at ourselves being like, I'm offended by this and I need to know why it's happened.
Yeah. Love that.
That's so good. And I just love the way that you guys are speaking about, just for each other. And, it's all about the assumptions, right? And I think we can get too easily offended by a lot of things. Like you mentioned before of like, if he's half an hour late from work, I could picture myself like, I could see myself getting offended of like, Amy hasn't got home and this is, I'm taking this personally now. But I love that just reframing of your mind. And Amy's really brought that curiosity into our relationship, having that attitude of curiosity first, and that's been huge for us. Another thing that you guys mentioned is the saying sorry part. You said it for like 2 seconds, but I think it's really, really important is being able to say sorry, going back later, that reflection to your kids, but also to each other. Like actually, upon reflection, I'm sorry, I realize I've either reacted this way or I haven't had the full picture or whatever else. I feel like sometimes we're we can put our heels in too much of like, well, I can't go back now. I've said what I've said and I can't go back. I was like, no, you can. And we should a lot of the times as well. So that reflective part, I think, is really important and valuable.
Especially in parenting, I feel like that happens.
Yeah, in parenting in front of your kids, like even not just to your children, but to each other.
Yeah.
Like to say sorry to each other in front of our children and then to go and say it to them and to own, like to be responsible for your own actions, like to say to them, do you know what? Mummy was really frustrated just then. I'm sorry I spoke to you so sharply. Please forgive me. That's what I want them to be able to say to each other, that when one snatches a toy off the other and one screams and gives her a little wallet back, you know what? I own my response. I was feeling frustrated by that. I responded in the wrong way. Can you please forgive me? They're only going to do that. We can't expect that of a child if they've never seen that modeled for them.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of these things, I think when we became parents, they became even more, they were important to us before being parents, and they're even more so important because of what it models to them and what it shows them, and especially the intentionality in relationship. I think that like just knowing that our kids, we don't know what their lives are going to be like or what's going to unfold for them, but knowing that we have done our bit to show them what it looks like to be intentional and have this curiosity mindset and have this sacrificial mindset in relationship is really encouraging, because we know that that's what we can give them.
Yeah, I love that idea of like your family ties or like your family of origin. And Samuel and I are very blessed to have come from two very solid, loving families, and both families that didn't yell or didn't raise voices, treated each other respectfully. We've had that modeled really well from both our families separately. So I think coming together, in some ways, it was easier for us to have this relationship. We are all for marriage. We love marriage. It's like being married to someone is the best thing. Like I can't actually put words for it. And we want this for other people. But having that understanding for ourselves through all that work we did early on, I think it's made us more aware of the type of household we want to model for our children as well. And even something I hear Samuel say to our girls quite often, he says, you know, how do your friends speak about their brothers and sisters? Because they, you know, in the playground, there's all these things, you know, such and such's older sister came down and they're so annoying and they're this and they're that. And we say, you know, how do your friends talk about their family? Because, you know, the way they talk about their family gives you a really good idea of how they're going to treat their family when they're older. So starting to equip our kids with this, I guess it's like an emotional intelligence and intellectual understanding of other people and how they're wired, and what you can see as fruits in other people's lives is actually what's going to come out of them later. Samuel spoke earlier on about, you know, when you squeeze something, what's going to come out when pressure's on is what's inside it. You want to be able to be looking for these things, and we want to be modeling to our kids in our home, hopefully things that they're going to catch. You know, you can lecture your kids as much as you want, but what they're actually going to take with them is the things that they see and experience and feel.
Yeah, consistency just also increases trust.
Absolutely.
So, like for me within our relationship, like one of the big things is that what Liv sees of me when it's just us is the exact same person that should exist everywhere else.
Yeah,
I don't want to pretend to be something within our relationship and then go out and like a big thing that I really can't stand, and it's a bit of a bugbear for me, is guys that complain about their wives or partners.
Yeah.
And so for me, like I just want Liv to always be 100% clear that the way that I speak to her about like with my friends is the exact same way that I would speak to her. And it's one of those things of like, even for our kids, we want them to see a consistency of character in us in every single situation, whether it be chatting to new kids at a podcast event or doing youth ministry or hanging out with just them. I want them to see us as us, not different versions of the same person, but consistency in character so that they have comfortability and trust in who they're dealing with, and encourages them to actually get to know who they are and then be consistent with that. Because with a lot of young children, like, and as they get older and hit teens and that sort of thing, like identity and who you are is something that is really complicated. So for them, actually getting the understanding of you do not need to be someone different in different circumstances. You actually just need to be who you are and the best version of who you are. and that will be fine in every situation. And so that's the kind of thing that we like, consistency of character in our own relationship, because it gives confidence and stability. But at the same time, we want to display that to our kids so that as they get older, they know that it's completely okay to be consistent. You don't need to pretend to be one person with your friends and then pretend to be a different person at home and all those other things. You can actually be confident and comfortable in who you are and be consistent across all areas of your life.
Yeah, that's so good. And we actually spoke just recently about attachment styles. And one of the things with attachment styles that people navigate is it's the consistent relationship or interactions they had with their caregivers when they were children that usually sets that up. So it's not about like, sometimes they're extremely affectionate and then other times they're really distant. It's actually what they saw consistently that was more impactful to them. So that's a big challenge. And I love that approach. And I love the lesson that gives for kids, because you're right. It is so complex. Identity is so complex, and it's something we've been navigating with our kids. Well, everybody does, but like trying to think, how do we get ahead of this as they're younger now and they're not yet in high school where the pressures are 10 times more? How do we get ahead of this in terms of really helping them understand who they are and what their worth is and what they can offer people and how to treat people? And I think this is a really good approach to that. That's I love that framework. It's challenging.
And you got to be intentional, don't you? It's actually, parenting is exhausting. Parenting
So much.
really is. You feel like a broken record. You've said things 10 times over, you know, but it's that consistency. It's actually, we say to be clear is to be kind, and setting the example, explaining to kids exactly what's going to happen. And you feel like a broken record because you've said it 5 times over, but that's actually the kindest thing for them, because they know what's coming. They know what they're going to expect. They know that if something goes wrong in our household, they don't need to be fearful about our response, because they've consistently seen how we handle and deal with things over time. They don't need to be worried about our emotions. And it's hard to, you know, have the self-control at times when you guys will know 4 kids, you're stressed. You just want them to get into bed. It's really tiring.
Yeah.
But it's the kindest thing for them, isn't it?
And then apologising when you get it wrong, as you inevitably do.
We do. And no way at all do Samuel and I have a perfect marriage. We are 2 people who make mistakes over and over and over again, but we're willing to be humble enough to come to each other and say, I am actually really sorry for that. I'm going to own that behaviour and apologise for it. I know that we are long game parenting.
Yeah, exactly.
Not parenting for the here and now. We are trying to instill and build character and encourage our kids to help them become who they are. They're also different, but the best versions of themselves, not for today and tomorrow to make it easier for that they'll eat their food and go to bed and brush their teeth, but to know that when we're sending them out of our house one day, that they are going to be people who know who they are, who love each other, and who are willing to, I guess, even be willing to listen to instruction. Yeah. That's one of the biggest things. And by being clear and kind and consistent, they're more likely to turn to you for advice or for anything like that.
Absolutely.
And find people they trust.
Yeah. Wow. So you guys are, as we've heard a little bit in your intro here, in a really, really busy season, and you've got 4 kids. How do you find yourselves finding time to connect and spend time as a married couple in that quality space?
Because you're talking a lot about intentionality, and it's like, where do you find the time for that intentionality? 4 kids, podcasts, electrical work,
and
physio work.
Yeah, we've been living with my parents for 12 months because we've had a huge insurance job at our house. So even that, we're like, we don't even have like the individual family space that we normally have too. So what would you say, Ram?
That's huge.
I think I'm someone, time for me is one of the most valuable things I think that there is. Time is something that, if not used well, feels quite wasted. And so as busy as we are, I really value moments and time. And so it's one of those things that in the busyness, choosing to redeem the moments that there are, because we see it so often. So many people have such a different definition of what busy looks like, and that's completely fine. The reality of what busy is for them might be different to what busy is for us. But even in the busiest of busy, you still have time, and it's about how you use that time. And so for us, we often will look forward and we will go, hey, we got the kids into bed, well done. It's still this time, whatever. Let's just be together. And being intentional about that time and intentional about moments and looking for opportunities to create time together and create time as a family and just constantly checking in. And so Liv's really good at that of going, hey, I feel like we need an actual something together. We're going to do this. And for me, it's hard because I'm always on the run. I'm always doing something. If I'm not being productive, it hurts. So having someone who is there watching me as well and going, hey, I think we need to do this. I think we need to do this is really, really helpful. But it's about choosing what you do in the moments for us.
I was going to say Samuel is really, really good that he will never leave the house or leave me without coming and giving me a kiss and a hug. He tells me he loves me. I don't even know how. I probably couldn't count it so many times in the day, whether it's in a text message or a quick phone call or, you know, we'll be home and forever he'll just touch my arm. And he's such a physical touch person that for him, you know, if we do have a moment on the couch, me putting my hand on his foot is like, it builds that form of connection.
Contact, yeah.
So he's really good that in every moment, every hello, every goodbye, he's super intentional. And that whole thing about feeling seen, I can see I'm prioritized even in the busyness. So even in the flybys of a great thing that it's just formed this year with extracurriculars and sports and things is that Samuel really owns the trainings, the games, all that stuff for sport. One of our daughters really wanted to do piano and we did not have a night. So on a Tuesday morning, we found a friend who was willing to give her a lesson before school. So Samuel leaves extra early to get her to piano, do that. He's sort of taken all that. So we fly by each other quite quickly and time disappears very quickly. But even in all those moments or those drop-offs or, you know, he picks one kid up from me and takes them to training or I always feel very valued even in those seconds. He always comes to me, always asks me how I am, will always give me some form of touch, a kiss, a hug, anything like that at all. So we even have that, I think, that we don't live as like housemates. We still very much live valuing each other first. And we do see that we do put our marriage at the top and then there are the kids' priorities.
I was going to say priorities is such a big one because the thing is, as busy as we are, we could be so much busier if we chose different things.
Yeah.
And it's the reality of, for me, it's all about value. Like what is the most valuable thing? You've probably heard the big rocks, little rocks thing. Get the important things in place first and then whatever you can squeeze in around it, great. But for me, family and my wife are always going to be the most important thing. So they get the priority. Even in my electrical business, if there's a wild day that is ridiculous, but I need to be here for my family, the big thing that I've learned is even people that kick and scream and treat you like rubbish because they think they're so important, they're still just people. And the reality is I actually really value my people, which is my wife and my family. And so I will make those choices. And it's that thing of you do what you love most. And so for me, what I love most is actually my family. So I'm always going to choose to do the family things first. And then whatever we do around that is great. It's all extra stuff and wherever we can kind of plug in and add some value to everything that we're doing is fantastic. But at the same time, I also have the confidence that Liv will say to me, hey, you're not giving enough time to our family if it ever gets to that point. And if she said it, that would be me going, cool, what are we dropping? And it's that thing of like, because it is the priority, she has full confidence to be able to tell me at any given time, we need to cut something and I'll be all for it. And so it's just, I know that our marriage and our life is so much different to a lot of people, but it's actually what works for us.
Because Samuel's always been this way and so consistent in that prioritization that if there is a time where he is super busy or he can't come home because of the past, because of his track record, I know and I can fully trust that clearly this is something that really needed to happen. So often so willing, if he does have space, he'll call me and say, I can do pickup today or I can, and being your own boss, we're a bit more flexible with that. But running a company, it takes a lot of time. So it's very fine balance, but I can trust in how he's proven himself faithful to that over time, that if he is busier for a season, it is for a good reason. And it's not because he's necessarily deprioritizing us. It's just that something is very clearly a high priority that needs to happen.
And communicating the why behind it as well.
Yeah.
So if I can say, hey, the next couple of weeks are going to be really, really busy because of A, B, and C, I've declared why, and all of a sudden it's not just you're not here or I'm seeing less of you. It gives reasoning behind it, which helps to see the best in those moments. But in that as well, going, once it's all done, we should go away for a weekend. We should take the kids to the zoo or something and look for those special little events to kind of go, hey, it's going to be tricky for a bit. I'm really sorry, but let's do this at the end of it, and kind of just, because like I hate when I don't get to see my wife. Like, bit of a side note, I've been a little bit unwell with a few bits and pieces, and spent the night in hospital, not last night, the night before. And
oh my gosh, wow.
My heart wasn't playing friends, but it's all part of the fun. But it was that moment of being separate, even for that one night. I hate it. I really hate it. Like, my desire is to be with my wife and my family. And so when I'm not with them, I'm wanting to be with them. There's never that moment of like, oh, I'm so glad to get away from them. And I think Liv knows that, which actually adds to the fact of when I'm not there, she actually knows that my desire is actually to be there. I would love to be there if I could. So
no, I get that. We call it, like, so we do a bit of travel for our work, and majority of us are dads, and we call it the dad guilt. Like, we just being away is very, very hard, and because you feel guilty, you know, it's like, one, I want to spend time with you, but two, I know now I'm sort of dumping stuff on you too, which is hard. But just really admire you guys. I admire your intentionality. Your way to communicate what you're communicating about is just so clear and encouraging. And so thank you so much for that. And I think, you know, like you said, 11 and a half years you guys have been married, and you don't have the perfect marriage, as you've mentioned, but you've definitely learnt a lot of things on the way. You've been so intentional along the way. And so, but you weren't always like that. You definitely started somewhere. So if you could look at all the things that you've learned up until today, if you could go back in time, meet yourselves when you just got married or just started dating, what's the biggest advice you would give each other?
For me, I think the biggest thing that I would tell my younger self in my relationship with Liv is humility will actually lead to the best. Because the more that I can humble myself and pull myself out of the picture, and what that naturally does is encourages me to put her first, it actually leads to a much stronger relationship. I think early on, like, we dated as 16-year-olds and then broke up and then got back together later in life and then got married, and we had to do a lot of growing up over it. And so if I was talking to 16-year-old me about relationships when we were together, I would be saying, this relationship isn't about you. It is about her and bringing out the best in her so that together you can have the best life. And that's the same thing. Like, you learn it more and more and more. The more you put your wife or your partner first, the easier your relationship becomes, because you're seeking their good and enabling them to be able to be the best that they can be as well. And so it's one of those things I would just continuously tell myself, take your eyes off you and give your wife your very best continuously for no other reason than you love her and care for her.
One of your your family mottos has very much been, how are you going to be outwardly focused? They spoke about that all the time, over and over and over. And I've seen that in Samuel's life over and over and over. He's always eyes up and out and not on himself and looking for others. I guess for me, being so young when we got married, even though we were friends for a very long time, so I felt like I knew Samuel so well before we even got married, which was a gift, and I think that's helped us a lot. I would just tell myself that my emotions can deceive me. My emotions actually don't tell me the true narrative, and that things always feel better in the morning. In that you sort of just need that space and that time, and you need someone wise around you who's older than you, not a peer. No, I could go to my girlfriends and it could turn into a complain fest, but we made that call that we don't complain about each other at all. We talk to each other, but having someone ahead of you who has walked what you've walked, even though it might look different, having someone who has knowledge and wisdom, who can speak truth into your emotion, who knows both of us, doesn't just know me and will side with me, but someone who knows Samuel as well. That was so beneficial. And just to hold to those relationships, to walk your journey with people. Like it's hard. It's hard having two people with flaws coming together, trying to build something which is going to be long lasting and have positive impact on others. Yeah. You need support and you need people around you. Don't trust your own emotions. Have wise insight and wisdom from others. And just that long game, you're on the same team.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, guys, we could talk to you for hours because this has been such an incredible
We kind of actually did a mini episode before we
record
too. So.
You guys don't get to hear that.
Yeah, it's ours.
This has been so good having you on the podcast. And again, we're so honored that you would take the time to chat with us, especially during the day. This is daytime hours. So this is parenting/work hours. So
Yeah.
really, really appreciate you setting aside this time and the wisdom that you've shared and the stories that you've shared. It's been incredible and encouraging. And we wanted to just finish off as well and say, if anyone wanted to get in contact with you, Sam, or follow along with what's going on in the silly story world, what would they do? Where would they find you?
Best place to start is on Instagram. If you look for Silly Stories for Kids, you'll be able to find everything from there, which is been a wild little journey. I'm not normally a social media person at all. I'm trying to learn it as I go, and it is a complex beast. But
it is,
at the same time, it's probably the best starting point. And it's a fun time to get involved because I feel like we feel very much like we're standing on the precipice of something and we don't know what it is. We've got a podcast that has grown over time. We're doing some music. We've written a few books, and it's all audio book coming out as well. And it's at this moment of like, it's really exciting to see where it goes next. So if you want to join us along the journey, jump on Instagram, find Silly Stories for Kids, and you can witness what a bad Instagram looks like. As it slowly gets a little bit better, but
any podcast platform as well. You're on all of them.
Yeah, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all of it. But at the same time, if you do have young kids, and
they will love it.
They will. But in it, I also want to encourage parents to really use their own creativity with their kids. Because my brain is one type of creative, and who they might be a different kind of creative. That they're your kids. Like, the reality is they've got some of your genetics. There'll be creative stuff in you that they will resonate in with so well. Be encouraged and equipped just to do something and give it a go, because it's really, really fun to connect with your own kids through that creativity and through those kinds of things in the way that you are and your family is. So as much as the podcast is fun, and I'd love to share it with anyone that wants to, I'd love for them to be sharing within their own family as well. So
I love that. Thanks again, Sam and Liv, for joining.
Thanks for having us.